So thank you everyone for joining us today. We have a lot of members from our community and also from DFnet looking forward to see what's new on DFdiscover 2022. We have made some introductions. We have made already some introductions on what's new through our emails that we've been sending to you late August, early September. But today is our opportunity and your opportunity too to learn about what's new and also to ask questions to all of us. So before starting, just the usual thing that we usually covered. I think we have muted all of you just to avoid background noise. But if for some reason we have not muted you, please mute during the presentation and drop your questions at the chat. I will be checking the chat box during the team presentation, and we will hold those questions until the end. We have reserved 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes at the end of the presentation for me to read the questions, but also for you to unmute yourself and to ask your question directly. So this is what we really like about these webinars and this community, that you may feel free to ask questions out loud. And I think, yeah, this has been recorded. So today's webinar is being recorded, and we will be able to share a link with you afterwards. Also for you, if you want to check what's been going on, and also for some members of your team in the event that they have been unable to join us today. So as you can see, we have most of our software team presenting and introducing you DFdiscover 2022. So this is your opportunity also to ask them questions and to make sure that you are using the latest release to the fullest. So Laura, I think you will be started. Laura will start with the presentation, and then we will have the rest of the team, Summer, Hugo, James, and Craig, introducing you some of the features. So thank you everyone. Rajay, you're ready, good to go.
Thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, so we are excited that we released DFdiscover 2022 in early September. So this release includes updates to the server, the API, the desktop client tools, DFweb, and DFcollect. We've really made changes across all of our applications and all of the tools that we provide. The official build date is August 30, and we call it DFdiscover 2022, but we also refer to it as version 5.5, 5.5.0. We mean the same thing when we refer to it both those ways. And so today we're going to highlight the top 10 new features in DFdiscover 2022. The first 3 will focus on eCRF enhancements. So that allows you to do more CRF design directly within DF setup. So if you're able to continue moving away from designing CRFs in FrameMaker or Word, instead saving time with your study build and getting those eCRFs designed directly in DF setup to save time, we've added more features to make that possible. We've also added new features around the audit trail to make it faster and easier to use. We've continued to add new features to both DFweb and DFcollect, so we'll take you through how those look, and then also changes to DFadmin and to data export. So these are the ones we're highlighting today. There's lots of other new features that we'll touch on as well, but these are the ones we're really excited to share with you. So the first one around eCRF enhancements is HTML formatting. So you're now able to customize how your eCRF design is using HTML code. Oops, sorry. Sorry. Slides are already fighting me. So you're now able to add things like color, formatting, adding spacing, symbols, special characters. And these are supported in DF Explore as well as in DFweb and DFcollect. So there's lots of different options you can do with HTML. It doesn't allow you to do everything you possibly can with HTML, but does give you a lot more power than you had before. So here you can see in DF setup in the prompt field property, you can add the HTML code directly into that field, and that will update the way the text is displayed on your eCRF. And so you can see in the screenshot things like font color, you can add symbols, there's sizing options in there, alignment options. So there's a lot of different things you can do with HTML. And even if you're not familiar with HTML, if it's not something that if you don't know HTML code at all, don't worry. There are lots of online tools. Online HTML editor.dev is one of those options where you can actually design how you want things to look, and then you can copy and paste the HTML code into DF setup. And so the next feature we've added is instructions. So you're able to now add instructions as a field property to add additional text to your eCRFs. So this gives you a way to add instructions in different positions around each of your fields. So the different positions that you can see being shown here are above the prompt, below the prompt, above the field or below the field, or to the right of the field. So you can choose where you want to add that additional text depending on how you want your CRF design to look. So it really gives you more power than you had before to add additional instructions, help information, extra titles, and you can also use HTML formatting in this new instructions field property as well. So you can decide how you want to customize how those instructions look. Just to look at how this appears in DF Explorer, so you can see the little notation for each of those instructions where that instruction is actually located. DFweb is mostly the same as DF Explorer with a couple of small changes for field right. So you can see the field right instructions over here. It moves the QRM buttons to the right and they're displayed vertically to make space for those instructions. And if you are using DFweb on a tablet on a smaller screen, those field right instructions will wrap and they will appear below the field to make space for the QRM buttons. And in DF Collect, the instructions will appear a little bit differently. They only appear above or below the prompt text. So if you have the instructions above the prompt or above the field, those will appear above the prompt. But the other three positions, field right, below field, or below prompt, those will appear below the prompt, but above the data field. So none of the instructions will appear below the data field. So that's just a difference that you'll see in DF Collect to adapt to the smaller screen size. And the third change we've made to eCRFs is tables. So you can now use tables to customize how your fields are laid out on your eCRF. So this gives you a lot of control over how you'd like to design your CRF. So, you know, our current design in 5.4 and earlier is just, it's a simple vertical layout of all the fields on one plate. But here you can really have more control over where the data fields appear on your form. We've also added a plate property for landscape orientation, so you can use a wider width of eCRF if you need to. This is a good example of an ECG form where you use that landscape property. So it gives you a lot of flexibility to design how your eCRFs want to look, and it is currently supported in DF Explorer only. So here's an example of how you would design a table within DF Setup. So you can select your fields on the setup screen, right click, select add edit table, and that will open up this add edit table dialog. And you can specify which fields you want to include in the table, the number of rows and columns, and you can customize your table title, your headers, and you can just decide which data fields in sequence belong in which fields. And so you can see as you add the tables, it updates the eCRF in the main view, and you can just continue to add tables on a specific plate. And you can see here, you know, even if you're just adding a table with one field, one row, one column, it changes how the field and the prompt are displayed on the form. So you can really customize how that will appear. There's a few different options which I'll go over in more detail within this dialog that lets you customize how you want the different options that you have available within the table. You can use the table title to add in text. And also everywhere you add text, you can also add HTML to format in the similar way I was talking about in the first new feature that we added. We also have some new eCRF view options, which I'll talk about in a bit more detail shortly. And one other thing I wanted to point out with tables is that each cell in the table doesn't necessarily need to have a data field in it. So you can have blank fields within your table, and you can also add text here within your table as well. So in this example, I'm adding the CRF version as a field in the table at the bottom along with my SDV field. So it's a way to add that additional text that you would normally have on your CRF background and just include that on the eCRF as well. So at the bottom, at the taskbar at the bottom of DF Setup, you'll see a few new buttons at the bottom. So the Add Edit Table button is there available. It's also in the right-click menu. You can also click on the Order Fields button here as well, where you can change the order of your fields. You can also add screens and group fields. We also have a new eCRF preview mode. So those of you who might be familiar with the H key that you use as a shortcut that hides the plate fields and lets you kind of preview what the eCRF will look like in DF Explorer, we now have that mode so that you can see that eCRF preview as you're making changes to the CRF and as you navigate between different plates. And we also have an eCRF table toggle, so you can show or hide the tables so you can see how the eCRF looks both with and without the tables, depending on how you're using the eCRFs. So let's take a closer look at the Add Edit Table dialog. I just want to point out some of the features that we've added in. David did a lot of work to make this work as it is, and it was really exciting to see how much flexibility you have with designing tables. So at the top, you can select a table on your plate or add a new table on the plate. You can also rename or delete the current table that you have open. There's options here to select the first and the last fields that you include in the table. So you can customize that if you want to expand the number of fields that get included in the table or cut down the number of fields that you include. There's also an option to order fields into the vertical columns instead of horizontal rows. So here you can see field 11, 12, 13 are ordered horizontally. But you can change that so 11, 12, 13, 14 are ordered vertically. And as you make changes in this part of the dialog, you can just click Update Table, and that will update the section below to give you a preview of where the data fields fit and where the headers are defined. So for each of the header cells, there's a ellipsis button where you can click and you can select the field name, alias, prompt, or description to automatically enter that into the header cell. But you can also just manually type in the header that you want to use. And there's also an editor window so that if you are using HTML or you have longer text that you want to do it, you can open that in a separate window to make editing more easier. In the table cells, there's also options to add or remove blank fields or add or remove blank columns so that you can add in those extra spaces depending on how you want to organize the fields in your table. And then the open editor window is also available when you have text in that field. And so all of these eCRF enhancements that I've shown you, you'll see them. So whether you're printing the annotated CRFs, whether you're printing your blank or completed eCRFs from DF Explorer, whether you're creating your subject packages, all these features will be included there. When you are exporting your setup definition to Excel, you will see the actual HTML code. So the text as you enter it in the prompt, in the instructions, you'll see that HTML code directly within the Excel file. The HTML isn't rendered, but the HTML is rendered in all the other places where you would view or print the eCRFs. So those are all of the features we added to eCRFs. It's a lot of new cool things, and we're looking forward to hearing from you how you are using these tools in the future. And I'll be passing this on now to JB for the next section.
Thanks, Laura. All right, so the next section is all about the audit trail and the history of changes abilities of DFdiscover. I think at this point we're maybe a little too used to hearing redesign from the ground up or similar phrases, but really the team has put a lot of work into changing how the audit trail information is stored. All the information is still the same, but we've changed how it's stored. And this comes with a number of benefits for us. So first of all, we've changed a little how this information can be displayed. And so the page history dialog that comes in DF Explorer has been updated to be a little more easy to understand, a little more readable, and hopefully a little more user-friendly. Also, with this, we didn't want to remove any of the features that you have enjoyed, and so at the bottom of this dialog, we still have the show detailed history option. One of the biggest gains that we got from redesigning how the audit trail is created is in speed. The audit trail now loads significantly faster. The page history, in fact, it's so fast that it's opened up kind of new ways of using this audit trail. As you can see, we've got a little video showing here that the user is actually able to keep the page history open on the side, and then as you move through the fields, it will show you which fields you're on, and then as you move on to the next page, it actually loads up almost instantaneously and you're able to see the history for the page right there beside you. So obviously that's a huge gain, but that's not the only way that we've been able to update or improve the page history. So on the next slide, we'll see that we've also been able to add the page history into DFweb and DFcollect. These are available from the page menus, both in DFweb and DFcollect. You select the page history option, and then once you've selected those, you're able to see the page history dialogues. We use the same simplified format as is available now on DF Explorer. The more detailed view isn't available on DFweb and DFcollect. However, we have added this in, and it contains all the same information that you would be seeing for those pages on DF Explorer. Then moving on, we've also been able to add some more options for history of changes in the subject packages. So within the subject packages, you now have the option of how you want to format the history of changes when you include it in the subject package. We've got the legacy, simplified, and detailed Excel option. The legacy is what you're all familiar with, what's been around since for a while now in the subject packages, but we've added in the simplified and the detailed to provide some more options. So for the simplified view, when you choose that, the simplified data that you see in the page history is also provided at the end of the subject package PDFs. It's provided for every CRF that you're that you have in the package. You'll see the header for the CRF as well as a description of all the changes marked with the field and the field label, as well as, of course, when the change was made and what change was made. We also have the option of outputting this information in an Excel spreadsheet. When it's outputted in the Excel spreadsheet, it's divided out into a number of different columns containing very detailed information about what was actually changed. And this allows you to take this information in a computer readable format and put it into any of your pipelines or flows that you need in order to analyze this information. And the final way that we're able to use the history of changes is we now have more options in the history of changes report. So previously we had 4 or 5 options available in this report. As you can see here, the list of options has grown significantly. Now this the history of changes can be filtered and customized by sites, statuses, levels, the dates, the users who did the changes. We also include the ability to filter which records or which changes you're seeing. You can see data changes, query changes, or reasons changes. Then finally, at the bottom of these options, you can see that there's a few more options, and these allow us to include in the history of changes reports a lot of the same functionality, or the same functionality that we were getting in the legacy reports, the DFAT mods, DFAT faxes, and DFAT CRFs. And those can be, you can use these 3 options to be able to customize and enable all the same functionality that you had in those reports. So we're excited about all these changes that came for the history and the audit trail. We're excited to see, or we're excited to have these options and new abilities available to you. Next, we'll be handing it off to Ego to talk about the query view in DFweb and DFcollect.
Thanks, JB. Hello, world. Let's start the query view feature in DFweb and DFcollect. In DFweb, query view is available after a study loaded. As we all can see, that is the site-based query info I displayed by using table list. There are also 3 drop-down filters, site, category, and query status for query sorting. Next slide shows the example of a category filter that is a user could select one specific category to work on. In addition, there is a query filter dialog provided by DFweb. Clicking right funnel icon, a filters dialog pops up. User can select one or multiple conditions, including the query modify and timing to screen required queries. Next, please. When required queries are available in query view, clicking one query item, user could directly open corresponding plate. Plate is open and select field is highlighted and be ready for editing. User can filter the query list in left sidebar. Next slide. Within this dialog, the query list can navigate it, and in DFweb, you do not need to go back. You can keep working right from this page if you want. Let's move on DFcollect. DFcollect provides query view menu at the study and site level. The difference is that study query view will show a query summary dialog, and this dialog shows the all sites query information, so a user could select one site to work on. Then, in query view, query basic information are listed in a table, and there are 3 drop-down filters with total count number information, so for user to selecting. To check one query details, click 3 dots to display one query detail dialog. List including query content, query author, query age, and subject query summary. And if a user wanted to check site query summary, click a help icon. Query summary visualization pop-ups as the swipe dialog, so user can see the basic summary. And also, user can select one specific subject to work on. After clicking one query item, related plate is open and select query field get focus. There is also a small pie chart indicate plate query information. This chart is dynamically updated when there is any plate query changes. Clicking this chart, DFcollect shows outstanding and pending query information. After a user finishes this plate, click the top left back icon. Updated query view is present at the previously selected position, so a user could move forward to work. Hope you enjoy and explore query view in DFweb and DFcollect. Let us move on other features by JB. Thanks.
Thanks, Ego. So we promised you 10 new features. We were a little too excited about some of the other features in DFweb and DFcollect, so we pulled a fast one and included 3 new features in feature number 8. First of these that we've included is that in DFweb and DFcollect, you can now view and use tasks. So these tasks still need to be created in DFexplore, just like they were before. However, once they have been created in DFexplore and assigned to users and roles, those users and roles can go into DFweb or DFcollect, and on the site listing page, you can select the task list and open that up. That will display all the tasks available to the users. And from there, actually, let's move on to the next slide. You can see on DFcollect, you get the list of tasks as well as on DFweb. And from here, once you've selected the task that you want, you can open it up and view the list of records. In DFcollect, the list of records is presented first, and you're able to filter that and find the record you want to open. In DFweb, we open directly to the first record, but using the sidebar on the left of DFweb, you're able to navigate through the list of records in that task. Once you've found the record you want, you're able to perform the task and save the record. Also within this change, we've included the ability for both DFweb and DFcollect to respect the working mode and the save level of the task. And so the records will be saved to the correct level based on the task definition. We took this one step further and also included working mode and save levels set by edit checks, so that throughout both in tasks but also outside of tasks, if the working mode and save levels are set by edit checks, then DFweb and DFcollect are able to respond to those working modes and save levels, and your records will be saved at the correct level. It also respects the permissions accordingly, so that if the user has or does not have the permissions for those levels, then the plates or the view is updated accordingly. The second thing we wanted to include here was that DFweb and DFcollect now support e-signatures. Again, in DF setup, you will go in, add in your e-signature fields, and then both on DFweb and DFcollect, as you complete the form, and if your user has the required permissions for signing, when you save, you will be prompted to provide the username and password, and selecting sign will fill in the fields for you in DFweb and DFcollect, and those will be reflected in the database. The final new feature is that there's now the forgot password functionality in both DFweb and DFcollect. Due to some of the constraints and security considerations when dealing with a public API, though, we've modified the workflow, or modified how the forgot password flow works, so that it's different than what you get in DFexplorer. So DFexplorer is still able to use the current forgot password flow. However, in the new one, in both DFweb and DFcollect, you'll select forgot password, and it will open up a dialog asking you to put in your server username and email. And then when you click send email, it checks the username against the email of that user, verifies that those do in fact match, that the email provided is the one also listed in the username or in that user's profile. If they do match, then an email is sent to that email address with a link. When you click the link, you're taken to a new page where you're able to enter the new password twice and then click update, and it updates the password for you. This is a common forgot password flow that you've seen in many other applications, but we are excited to have it here. It has a couple of benefits for the API clients, that you don't need to worry about temporary passwords during this flow. The update is handled directly from the linked website. So thank you for indulging us as we talked about a few more features in this one feature. I believe we're going on to Samer next to discuss the role-based access to API clients.
Hi, everyone. Yep, the next one in our list is role-based access to API clients. In DFdiscover 2022, we have also implemented a permission setting that gives administrators control of role-based access to our API client apps. As such, in DFadmin's Roles tab, under Tools and Reports, we have added a new section called API Clients. This section allows you to control permissions for DFcollect, DFengage, DFsources, and the DFweb web application. With this feature, as a study administrator, you can allow or disallow use of these web and mobile apps by the study users. Let's go through a few simple use cases of controlling access to these apps. In scenario one, if you have a study where you would like to restrict users from using one specific mobile app, like DFengage, all you need to do is ensure that for all study roles, DFengage permission is unchecked. This will simply restrict users from connecting to the study using DFengage mobile app. Another scenario is where you would like to restrict users to only use DFweb web application to perform data entry. This could be a study-wide decision to ensure single web-based application is used for data entry. To accomplish this, uncheck all DFexplorer views and API client app permissions, with the exception of DFweb, as you can see on the screen. Therefore, users will not be able to use DFexplorer views or DFexplorer, DFcollect, DFengage, or DF sources to access the study data. However, only DFweb web application can be used. I would like to cover one more scenario to show how to limit the use of these API-based client apps to specific sites. Here is an example where DFCollect is the only tool allowed by this user to access data from all sites. However, for Site 5 related data, the user is only allowed to use DFweb. So basically, this opens various possibilities to define roles to control study data access by these API-based client apps. Finally, I do want to indicate some important considerations related to this feature when upgrading to DFdiscover 2022 version 5.5. First one is that this feature is only supported when both DFWS API and DFdiscover servers are running version 5.5 or higher. Using previous versions of either DFWS or DFdiscover will not enforce these role permissions for the API clients. So they will continue to behave as they have been in the past. It is important to also review, these new API client role permissions once you have upgraded to ensure that users have proper access for these web and mobile apps. And finally, one reminder that these API client app permissions operate independent of the API license. Having API license installed on the server is still a requirement to use any of the web and mobile applications. Now, for the last feature in our list, I will pass on to Greg Dilks.
Thanks, Amber. Hi, everybody. I know you've all been sitting at the edge of your chairs looking forward to hearing about data export updates. So here we go. Let's have the first slide. Thank you. So a while back, we added this extra little column to the site definition that you would enter in DF setup, and it's called test only. And the intention was that you would indicate if a site was just a test only site. So sometimes you have like an internal site ID that you want to use for testing. Sometimes you want to test even in the production study and not just in the development study. And so this gives you that flexibility. Unfortunately, we didn't do anything with it. You know, you put that nice little test only yes in there and then say, so now what? Well, there wasn't a now what until now. Now we've added, I think, a pretty powerful option for you. And I think a lot of people will enjoy this one. So if you're a command line person, and I apologize to all of you who are GUI bound or your company doesn't let you have command line access to your server, which I can understand. There is two utilities, DF export, which you can actually run from Windows. It comes with your Windows client software. And then there's a command line only server program called dfexport.rpc. So both of them have the same -X option that's been added, and that will allow you to exclude any output from sites marked test only. So if there's a site that has data that's test only and you do an export, you won't see it in that if you use the -X option. So next slide, please. We didn't stop there. We decided, well, you know, people want to look at their data with SAS. So, and you know, you don't want to look at your test data in SAS, and you don't want to have to write additional SAS code to eliminate it. So we added from the command line the -X option to keep things consistent, which again excludes all your test only data. But if you're running DF SAS from DF Explore, and if you remember, you have to go into list view first, and then you go file, DF SAS, and then you get the DF SAS dialog. When you run your DF SAS job, you'll get this additional dialog that you see here on the screen. And there's a little option down there that says exclude test-only sites. So that's how you do it without a command line. And we didn't stop there. We also added it to SQL load. So all you guys out there that are dumping your data to a SQL database, you can also exclude test-only data from that dump. And DFSQL load, of course, is only a command line program. You can only run it on your server. Most people will use the scheduling that comes with a Linux server. We call it cron and cron tab. So you'd have a cron tab entry that would call DFSQL load, would dump the study data that you want to dump, and then you would add this -x option, which would exclude the data from your test-only sites. And we didn't stop there. We added some other things to SQL load. And now we never had metadata before, or at least we had limited metadata. So now we export 4 new tables and a view that give you access to the metadata for your study. So setup information and tagging. I won't go through this. It's all in our documentation, which I'm sure everybody reads. But DF study, for example, that table will have the study number, the study name, the study begin year, that kind of thing. You know, DF plate has the number of fields in the plate. DF field, there's field properties and field level tags, that kind of thing. And there's also a summary view that takes the more important or more useful information from those 4 tables and combines it all in a view. So it makes it a little bit easier to use. And I think that people that are using things like Power BI and that kind of thing will find that these metadata tables will help greatly in making your reports look a lot nicer and have more, you know, targeted, relevant information in them. And I think that's it.
Thanks, Greg. I'm glad to see in the chat that a lot of these features that have been highlighted are being welcomed, and some are even referred as being that we're going to use it. Excellent. There are a few additional changes. Of course, we cannot go through everything. But now that you have heard about several prominent features included in this release, I would like to quickly go over some of these additional changes. In DF admin tool, an option has been implemented to add multiple ePro user accounts using the new Add Bulk Users dialog. This dialog allows creation of up to 100 user accounts at once. We have also updated new user dialog in DF admin tool that offers better UI for adding or searching user accounts. Batch edit checks updates include performance improvements, as well as option to run DF execute and DF mail functions without applying changes. This release also offers a new edit check function called DF user info, which can be used to retrieve users' full name and email address. In DF setup field order dialog, an existing functionality has been reintroduced where fields can be reordered programmatically based on CRF layout. Some of you may recall that being top to bottom or left to right sorting of fields. This feature is applicable to plates with CRF backgrounds only. So it's not available in eCRF, obviously. DF make DRF edit check has been updated to offer -L option to make DRF records for users with limited write level permissions. Without this option, the specified edit checks run for users with write level 0 permissions only. That had been the existing behavior and is a behavior without -L option. So this release offers more than 50 bug fixes contributing towards software performance, productivity, and security, besides all the new features that have been added. And details of all of the changes can be found in the release notes. In terms of version compatibility, new features in DFweb and DFcollect, such as queries, tasks, password reset via email, and e-signatures are only supported when connected to DFdiscover 5.5 or newer backend server. Likewise, desktop client tools features like eCRF tables, instructions, HTML formatting, and new page history are only supported with DFdiscover 5.5 or newer backend. Though these new features are not supported with servers running previous versions, as you can see on the bottom right of the screen, all of our client tools and apps are backward compatible when connecting to those servers. For supporting new client apps, it is, though, important to set version strict setting to minor versions supported at the server or study level. This is actually a requirement to support DFcollect, which is updated automatically the day we have launched 5.5. And it is automatically pushed out to clients' devices. Also, if your clients are using our DFweb hosted at dfweb.dfdiscover.com, even in those cases, for older servers, you need to set minor version supported setting on your servers. So while reviewing release notes for new features and changes, you will also notice some key sections such as supported configurations, known issues, and post-upgrade steps. It is important to note that there are two updates to post-upgrade process or post-upgrade steps section, which are essential to enable new features such as creation of new Audit Trail database. And as I have already mentioned, for any of your existing roles, it is important to review DF Explorer and API client roles permissions using the DF admin, particularly if your study is being accessed via API client apps like DFcollect, DFweb, DFengage, or DFsources. With this, back to you, Laura.
Thanks, Samer. So if you are ready to upgrade, the good news is that for users of DFweb, DFcollect, and the API, it's already ready to go. So as Samer mentioned, DFweb, our public version of DFweb, is available immediately at dfweb.dfdiscover.com. So that's been available since September 1st. If you do have a self-hosted version of DFweb, let us know when you're ready to upgrade and we can help support that process. We're already doing that for a couple of people on the call, which is great. And as Samer mentioned, DFcollect is automatically made available on the Google Play and the Apple App Stores once it's released. And so the users who do already have it installed and they have auto update enabled, they'll just get the new version automatically. And the DFWS that's publicly available, dfws.dfdiscover.com, that new API is available right now as well. For those of you who are ready to upgrade your server, depending on how your server is hosted, there's different scenarios. So if you are self-hosting DFdiscover, the installers and the documentation are available on our website. So you can go ahead and get that process started when you're ready. And of course, reach out to the support team if you need any help with that. And for those of you who are on dedicated servers or on shared servers, we'll be in touch to let you know when the upgrade will happen. They'll be happening soon. Hosted One and ZDF servers specifically, we're planning to upgrade those within the next 2 weeks. So you'll be receiving a notice for those of you using those servers for when that upgrade will happen. And just to give you some idea of what the software team is working on now, we're very glad to get 5.5 out the door. It's been, a year in progress almost. And so we're glad that that is now in your hands and you can actually start using it. And we are working on the patch release to fix some of the known issues that have come up. We're also working on making updates to DFengage, our ePro app. So we have some changes to support new and expired passwords and to improve the handling of any completed questionnaires that haven't been received yet on the server. So if they were completed offline, there's better handling of those types of forms. And we are planning a new feature to support custom notifications in DFengage as well. And so as we start working on the next minor release of DFdiscover, our focus is really on improving, adding new features to DFweb. So we're really hoping to continue to build on what we've done in 5.5 and really make DFweb the primary data entry tool that most of our end users are using. Maybe not the power users, but certainly our end users. We want them to be able to use a website and not have to install a desktop application. So that's our focus for this next minor release. And we've talked in the past about how we are transitioning to DevOps as a software team. And so we're continuing that transition now with continuous integration, continuous deployment, automated testing. Those things are all in the works. And our plan for the future is that we will be releasing more frequently, and each release will have fewer new features per release. So 5.5 came out about, 5.4, 2021 came out about a year ago. And so we're hoping to have shorter release cycles so that you're getting new versions and new features on a more frequent basis, but with not such, we won't have to pick and choose for a top 10 to share with you all the additions that we've made. So thanks so much for listening. And I think we're ready for questions.
Yes, thank you. Laura, Samer, JB, you all, and the rest of the team, Greg. Yes, I think Pascal, I think I'm seeing your hands up. So go ahead. Maybe it was because of a mistake. In the meantime, we've seen some questions on the chat. Some of them has been answered during the presentation. I wonder if one from Beacon, maybe it's for you, JB. Not sure if it was answered. Can the subject package PDF file be created from command line and DF? We still have DF Audit Trails.
Thanks, Rebecca. I'm actually going to pass this one on
Laura
or maybe Samer or Craig. Okay.
Yeah, there's DF Audit Trace is always going to be there, Vika, and you don't need to worry. It's still there, alive and well. And you can also run any of the reports from the command line. So there's a utility called DF Report, and it's all there for you. So your command line is alive and well.
And there is a there is a utility to create subject packages from the command line as well, right?
Right.
Greg?
Yep.
Great. A lot of message like congratulations, great for monitoring, Audit Trail, like nice new features like task in DFweb, and DFweb much more functional. So thank you everyone for those messages. But there's no more questions as far as I'm aware. So if any of you have any question, you can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask the question. We have most, if not all, the team, not only in the support, but also at DFnet here. You can say thanks, Greg, Laura, excellent being able to run various packages from command line.
So either David or Greg, can you expand on Weekend's another question regarding if DF Audit Trail is still available?
Well, I think I already talked about it, but yeah, I mean, it's just still there. It's the same old DF Audit Trace we've always had and enjoyed. So it used to be a command line program that was undocumented, and it just turned out that it was something that was fairly useful. And so nothing has changed with it.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Thanks, Chris. The table feature in the eCRF setup looks great. Thanks to the team who made it possible. And the Audit Trail is a small gem that has great utility from Beacon. Also from the chat. Good. Well, if there is no more questions, there are no more questions. You know that you always can reach out to us through email, you have the support team to if there is any questions upgrading. We can go to the next slide. Maybe we still have time, but let's finish with the last question. This is just a reminder. I know that some of you have already received the email regarding this year DFAC 2022. It will be again like last year, a virtual conference. You've received the save the dates, and I hope you have saved 9th and 10th November. More information will get to your inbox probably at the beginning of October, as well as registration with the full agenda and also speakers. But I'd like to also to say, as I've shared before, that if you like to participate during DFAC this year, the theme will be decentralized clinical trial. I'll be sharing an email shortly to some of you, maybe exchanging some ideas for you to talk during DFAC. But if some of you think that they have something worth to mention, I'm sure the rest of the community will be glad to hear the experience from others. So drop us a note saying I'd like to participate, and you'll be part of the agenda one of those 2 days. I'm not seeing any other comment on the chat, so maybe should we close the webinar today? Probably. Okay. Great. So thank you everyone who joined us today. As I said at the beginning, the webinar will be shared with you within the next days. Just in case we need to make some amendments, but for sure will be available for you on the email, also on our website. And if you have any additional questions or to like to connect directly with some of us, feel free to do it, and please do so. You can reach us out directly using our contact information. Yes, have a great rest of the day, and thank you, DFnet team, for putting this together and for making this release possible. Thank you, everyone.